On behalf of Shine.com, India's leading career portal from Hindustan Times, we welcome you to the 12th Hindustan Times Shine HR Conclave, the NCR chapter, a panel discussion where we aim to look at how HR can get the edge on capability to deliver organizational expectations of today. The theme for the conclave is therefore aptly building HR for business growth. As world economies continue to go through a period of slowdown, the way businesses function has been radically impacted. The business lessons of yesterday have been outpaced with the velocity of today's disruptive market forces. This changing business environment has made HR take a sharp look at how business works, and the war for talent has moved tangentially, where the mantra is not just recruitment, but developing talent within, a tougher mantle to pick up. So HR is forced to relearn and relook traditional strategies of employee management. These changing dynamics have made it all the more imperative for HR to embrace and embed pervasive technologies into the organizational culture. In essence, HR today needs to astutely don the role of being the strategic, economic, business, operations, and technological partner all in one. It is therefore critical for HR to review its agenda and quickly up the measure on its skill matrix. And we hope through the panel discussion to discuss such issues and reach a better understanding of the challenges that lie ahead. I'd like to now invite Professor Suresh Bedi, Director Quality Assurance and Director Center for Continuing Education at the Manav Rachna International University, to make the opening address. Just a few words about Professor Bedi. The Manav Rachna educational institutions have always been the hub of many top educationists, and Professor Suresh Bedi recently joined them as Director Quality Assurance and Continuing Education. He wears multiple hats, and Professor Bedi has an impressive career path spanning more than 3 decades of being a researcher, a corporate trainer, and academician with equal ease. Earlier, he was Professor of Management at MDU Rohtak and has been Director and Dean at the Institute of Management Studies and Research. In the recent past, he's worked as Professor and Dean at IMT Ghaziabad, and Professor Bedi is well known for his deep insight into the accreditation processes of international and Indian bodies, and for his expertise in the quality of higher education. He's authored many books, well known among which is Business Environment. So may I now welcome Professor Suresh Bedi, Director, Quality Assurance and Director at the Center for Continuing Education, Manav Rachna International University.
Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Manav Rachna Group of Institutions, it is my pleasure to welcome all the distinguished delegates. This is a special day for us, as this promises a great deal of learning, and we hope that on this occasion, not only the distinguished HR experts will bring to the table the current HR practices, but at the same time, some concerns in the education sector with regard to education in the field would also be explored. Perhaps now we are living in a world where the education sector is extending its arms to the corporate sector, and within the corporate sector, there are hands which are reaching out to education for reskilling themselves, for receiving the further education. And in the process, the critical issue is that is the education producing the right kind of HR professionals for the industry to fit into the different roles? In this introduction session, I would like to bring out a few issues which we consider are now taxing the minds of both professionals as well as in the academic world. This is what we gather from our interaction with a large number of corporates on different occasions, from the different professional writings in the field of HR. And we hope that in the next panel discussion session and the participation of this distinguished audience, more things, more insights will be gained and more such issues will be brought together. First of all, our understanding is that the different issues in HR, they are not there in isolation, but they are very closely intertwined and networked together. If we look at the world of business, perhaps HR is the most active factor of production, which assembles the other factors of production and puts them into the productive input-output processes. The HR factor is not only a manager, it acts as a strategist, it acts as a thinker, it acts as a planner, and perhaps in every walk of life, of the corporate life, HR is the factor which underlies every business operation and perhaps is the basis for the competitiveness of organizations. The various issues, they relate to performance, they relate to mapping, retention, development, investment, training, leadership, rewards, compensations, and now the gender concerns, particularly as we know, there are the issues relating to the sexual harassment at workplace. And although there are newer dimensions like workplace spirituality, which perhaps is intended to improve the working lives of professionals. While all these issues will be debated, there is one stream of thought which perhaps looks into one aspect that can HR development be taken as an investment on which some models of ROI could be built? Is it simply a process by which the people are recruited, developed, assigned certain tasks, performance is measured, managed, and then certain corrective actions are taken? Or we can put a framework of benefit cost analysis where we see that every human resource brings some value to the organization and it poses certain costs. And does this analysis work in favor of the organization or not? So perhaps these are the demands of competition which eventually would be necessary to make the organization stay competitive. There are several studies and concerns among executives which relate to the employee satisfaction. There is a lot of literature which has gone into this. Several reports have come forward. There are repeated surveys in the professional magazines saying that the best companies to work for. Now, a debate is going on that whether can we set up early warning signals for employee dissatisfaction, which would ultimately, which if not taken off would mean exits. Do exits really come as surprises to organizations, and do we easily let our key employees go because either they are expecting more for the organization or they are slightly get uncomfortable with the passage of time? Now, HR has been known as an art which is unique to the organization, unique to the people who are controlling it. But of late, there have been the scientific tools of HR management, whether it relates to the succession planning, or it relates to the training function, or it relates to the measurement of productivity, or other areas. And then there have been the concerns which relate to the career plateauing, the glass ceilings for women. These are some of the perennial issues. And then there have been some newly emerging issues. And one of these is what we call, which has been an established practice, is the pay at risk. Pay at risk. In the typical government sector, the pay at risk could be 0, whereas in the corporate sector, it could go as high as 50 or 60% or even more if the people are working in marketing situations. On the question of exits and retainability of employees, perhaps the systems are getting built where the retainability indices are being computed in relation to that how the job requirements are changing and whether according to that the capabilities of individuals are also changing. In the process, what is what is required, or what is the challenge before the professional HRs, that can we develop the continuous HR mapping systems which will keep the competencies and the job requirements in an optimum position. Education, as I said, would always continue to play a role, because the HRs which are now working in the organizations, they have been the products of the education system. And even in the mid-career aspirations, they look back to education for further education or for reskilling themselves. In this context, we conducted a simple survey of more than 2,000 young executives very, very recently, the results of which I will briefly, in 4 or 5 minutes, I would like to share with you. Can we have the survey, please? The survey is on employee reskilling. Sometimes we call it continuing education, or we look at the management development programs, or further education if we use the language which is used in UK or elsewhere. In this survey, we wanted to know that why do you want reskilling? What type of reskilling is required? What are the limitations? So let us see that what our young executives they have to say. In the base total of 2,300 plus, everybody had a work experience of 4 years and more. And Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai, together, they accounted for a great majority of the people. 41% of the respondents, they said that they need a higher education degree for more career opportunities or better pay. This is in spite of the fact that they have been inducted into the organization and they received several rounds of training. In addition to that, they are wanting to have some higher degree so that their career options could increase or their remuneration levels could go up. Very surprisingly, very few people wanted higher degrees to build up credibility with their seniors or with the peers. So it is not because of its decorative value, but the largest category was that more career opportunities, the second horizontal bar, which was one of the biggest motives for going in for reskilling. A majority of the candidates, they said that out of all the higher education areas, majority of them will like to pursue MBA. This is very contrary to the expectations that, as some people are saying, that there is a slump in the MBA market or it is getting disenchanted. So of all the programs, for example, further education programs in engineering and technology, hardly 5%, MBA is 55%, other categories are miscellaneous. Then there are certain obstacles. 32%, they said that the funds are not sufficient with them. Maybe they are the young executives, they are not built the savings to that extent. So for that purpose, perhaps they need a loan support, or they want some very realistic or rational or moderate fees so that they are able to do the studies. And then about 1/3 of the total, they said that they don't have the time to study. So for us, it is a message that if we are to design an executive MBA program, the fees have to be moderate if reskilling is to be made useful, and we have to introduce enough flexibility in the program so that it is possible for them to take up this further education and reskilling programs. So the flexibility would be in terms of the time schedules and geographical locations where the reskilling processes will take place. And then there is a great majority of respondents who would prefer online or part-time classrooms. So this perhaps accords to our already firm belief that taking advantage of the modern technology, they don't need classroom training as in the case of freshers, but they will like to use the modern technology to do that. So keeping in view these considerations, I am delighted to share with you that Manav Rachana group of institutions has come up with a highly flexible program in which the faculty from industry and from academia, both of them would be joining hands to deliver the contents which are directly relevant to the industry. We have been conducting the surveys in the sense that we must know that what are the career demands, career requirements, and in what areas the education is required. If the HR challenges in the corporate world, they have to be met. Not only we have to be wiser by the experience, but we have to be wiser by the training as well. So while the details are there at the pavilion, but I wish to convey that it is the blend of the HR practices taking place in the industry and some thought and research process going in the world of academics, which perhaps have to come together, bring out the synergies so that the skilling requirements of our economy are properly met. Today we are living in a world where the organizations, to be competitive, they have to be lean, they have to be mean, they have to be green, they have to be gender sensitive, and they have to be responsive to the needs of the society. So the expectations from this conclave is that it will not only bring an improved knowledge for us all in the field of HR practices, but it will raise further expectations from the educational sector, to which perhaps, and this message as it is brought to the world outside, so perhaps this will add, we hope that it will add a new dimension to the level and to the style of education which would be relevant to the needs of the working professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Bedi. I'd like to now invite the speakers for the panel discussion to please join me on stage. And as they come up, I will introduce each of them to you. So I would like to first invite Mr. Ajay Kukreja, Country Human Resources Director at Honeywell, India. In his role, Mr. Kukreja is responsible for managing and deploying the HR country generalist resources to meet the needs of Honeywell's businesses across India. In addition, he focuses on driving standardization of policies and processes and providing in-country expertise to HR and business leaders across the country. Earlier, he held a variety of HR leadership and executive positions at both Indian and American multinational companies across industry segments. Mr. Amit Malik, Director, Human Resource at Aviva Life Insurance, India. He leads HR and plays a significant role. He plays a significant role in contributing to and facilitating the achievement of the strategic business goals of the organization by partnering for success with key stakeholders. He has over 14 years of experience in the area, and prior to joining Aviva, has worked in HR leadership roles at the Bank of America, the Royal Bank of Scotland, American Express, and GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare. His expertise lies in areas like HR integration, talent management and development, restructuring initiatives, change management, performance and rewards, among many others. Amit is a certified trainer and has won several leadership awards during his HR career. Mr. Arun Sehgal is the Executive Vice President HR for India and the subcontinent with GlaxoSmithKline and has diverse experience in human resource management. A large part of his career was with Gillette, where he held positions of increasing responsibility both in India and overseas. He joined GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare in 2006, and his efforts on building world-class talent and a high-performance culture in the company are noteworthy. His major strengths are in organizational development, mergers and acquisitions, employee relationships, and HR services. Mr. D.P. Singh, currently the Vice President and Head of HR for IBM in the India and South Asia region. He is responsible for the entire HR organization in the region and is a member of the India leadership team. He's also the executive sponsor for diversity, university relations, and leadership development. Prior to this, Mr. Singh led the HR functions for IBM in Middle East and Africa, and he comes with over 32 years of experience across the IT and ITES industries. Prior to taking on his role, he was BU HR leader for global process services for the BPO business delivered out of India, the Philippines. And in addition to this, he was also the area HR leader for IBM in North India. A law graduate from Delhi University with an added master's degree in business administration from the University Business School, Chandigarh, he is actively involved in sharing his perspective on a variety of HR subjects in various fora. Mr. Prithvi Shergill, a professional with 20 plus years of experience, committed to adding value to teams and organizations and enhancing individual and group capabilities by developing engaging environments which facilitate delivery of effective service and value. Currently, he supports the HR team at HCL Technologies and partners with senior leadership to shape the business strategy, identify human capital implications, as well as design and deploy people practices to enhance performance and productivity. In his role as the CHRO, Mr. Shergill assumes a leading role as a steward at HCL to put the employee first and ensures that the policies, programs, processes and practices for people at HCL support individuals to join, learn, perform, collaborate and grow their diverse contributions and capability, thus increasing the value zone created each time they interact with clients. Mr. Sandeep Banerjee, Director Human Resources, Taj Hotels, Resorts and Palaces, and Vivanta by Taj Hotels and Resorts. After achieving a distinguished experience in various industries such as mining, pharmaceutical, and other manufacturing industries, Mr. Banerjee joined the Taj Group of Hotels in 2005. In his stint of almost a decade with the Taj Group, he has held many critical positions before he became Director HR and heads the function for 40 hotels with a workforce of 10,250 employees across 6 countries. He has helped create manpower grids for all brands of hotels in Taj, championing workforce planning, rationalization, and internal mobility. The Taj Group has regularly won several industry recognition awards like the Best Employer, Amity HR Excellence Award, the Gallup Great Places to Work Worldwide 4 times in a row, Best Employer in Hospitality Industry, and the CII Award for National Excellence for 2 years in a row. Our moderator, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Indraneel Chakraborty, founder of the Storyworks, who describes himself like so, and I quote, "I don't know the extent of my ignorance, so now I coach. I am a traveler, a gatherer of memories, storyteller and coach. A lot of wanderlust and a bit of pixie dust is what I am." According to him, stories have the power to turn a business into a recognizable brand. Expertly crafted storytelling efforts impact your audience and can help you attract new customers. Now, if that's not the most interesting way to catch your attention, I wonder what is. Ladies and gentlemen, Indraneel Chakraborty and the panel to discuss building HR for business growth.
So good evening. So it's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be back at Hindustan Times Shine HR Conclave. All of them that I've attended has always been very stimulating, and I have at least, and I know a lot of you have, taken back, food for thought. And I expect today to be no different. Today we have the honor of a very distinguished panel, a panel that has worked in various industries with varied experiences, and a panel who put together have more than 100 years of HR experience. And if we can't get some value out of it today and richness out of it today, that would be a pity. And in order to make sure that we are focused into something that we can all take back with us and try and use in our daily life, what your panelists and I have decided is that instead of leaving with the huge canvas, which is building HR for business growth, we would focus it down to a few challenges which are not only something that the people here face, but we believe are trends that all of you must be facing back in your organizations. And the 3 that we have decided to focus on, and the idea is to go into depth rather than width, and take some learnings out of it, are the first being the fact that today in this environment of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, there is a lot of pressure that is being put across the organization on justifying investment in resources. It's not just the marketing guys or the supply chain guys, but even people in HR who have to, metricize and get a measure out of what they put in. And so the question the panel would be talking about is, from their experience, what has worked in creating higher effectiveness and efficiency, and so lower cost while delivering the same or even better. So just to take an example, there was perhaps a time when we used to have retainership for search. Today, many companies have not only gone away from retainership, but said, I'm going to use social media, I'm going to use internal hiring, and I'll use referrals, and thereby I will not only get people that are the correct people, but I will reduce cost. So that's one area that we would like to look at. The second area is technology, and technology has moved long back out of the IT department to impacting other departments like finance, supply chain, and marketing, and I think has really landed up today in a big way into HR. So whether it is ERP for efficiency, whether it's intranet for better communication, or indeed big data for predictive analysis to figure out whether, which set of our employees are going to be most vulnerable, is an area that we would like to again talk about. How have the panelists seen technology being used to betterment and getting HR enabled to be partnering with business growth using technology. Finally, the third area that we would like to touch upon is a very popular area these days, which is the area of Gen Y, or the very younger or much younger workforce that we have today, and the expectations that brings with that. So a workforce that is perhaps far more informed, far more opinionated, perhaps with lower sort of time horizons, need, let's say, instant gratification. How do we manage that and manage the expectation? And the second part of that question is, how do we enable Gen X to be inspiring to this generation who perhaps think very differently? So those are the three areas that we will cover. Yeah, we will start first with this entire area of the pressure of the VUCA world and what it does to increasing efficiency. And so I'm going to throw this open to the panel, and anyone can start, and then we'll go around the table. If you could spend a few minutes to share with us in this area of building efficiency and reducing costs, what have been some of the things that you feel are good ways to handle the challenge in your experience, and what are perhaps a few examples where it hasn't worked? Anyone?
Yeah, I think the point is very valid, that whenever there are cost pressures, now everybody has to pitch in. Now, when it comes to HR, now I've got somewhat different experience. And the experience is different because I always felt that the organization needs to invest more in terms of HR resources. And if organization has to meet the challenge of better service delivery. And at the end of the day, the business is P&L driven. You got to deliver your P&L. The CFO has to deliver his P&L. The business head has to deliver his P&L. So I guess we need to have a compelling business story to convince the business that there is no point in cutting down the HR investment. There are different opportunities. There are different ways. There are different areas where the cost can be cut down. And I think that's the sort of discussion is definitely required. And I did find in my experience that areas such as efficiency in customer marketing, for example, and efficiencies in sales promotion. Now, lots of money gets wasted because nobody's really questioning the efficiency and productivity in these areas. So if you challenge, and HR needs to challenge that. HR should not take it for granted. So at the end of the day, if we can have a compelling story for the CFO and for the business that we need to continue to invest behind HR, I think there is a good chance for you to succeed. Now, having said that, just one more point is that we need to have very clear KPIs and performance indicators. And before we are questioned as to what's the value HR is adding to the business, I think we need to aggressively and proactively tell the business that this is how we are tracking the HR KPIs. So I think the proactivity definitely does help.
Okay. I'll come back to you later on if there's some tips that you have for the audience of how to create that compelling story and where they can look at. Other people in the panel, what your views are?
Sure. In our experience, what's worked for us is how you build efficiencies, as Arun alluded to in the process, that if you have to build a business case, how you build efficiencies in the HR function. And I think what's worked in our experience is the transformational journey that we've embarked on in the HR function itself. What we've done is we've organized ourselves differently. We've said that there will be strategy business partners and there will be people who will be centers of excellence. And what that has allowed us to do is take a lot of administrative work and put that into shared services. And this has helped us look at the productivity of shared services differently. This has allowed us to look at the business partner productivity differently, and has really allowed the business partners to focus on the business strategy and enable the businesses. And as a result of which, our headcount in HR has not just gone down in some parts, but it has increased in other parts as a result of which. But on the balance, it's perhaps the same. But in terms of value that we deliver today, as measured annually, we've been continuously better than the peers in the industry. And that gives us the confidence that this is the right path to take and continue to build on the success that we've had. So important, as Arun rightly said, is to measure it and share it back with your stakeholders and tell them in terms of what you're doing, how you're doing, and continuously engage with them and keep showing the value that you add. I think that works in our experience as well.
And I would imagine when you outsource the transactional part of HR, you actually make the rest of the work far more enriching for people, because I would imagine that's what you would have done.
It's not easy. Let me say that. The reason it's not easy because when the HR business partner first has to give some of that work, there is a lot of sense of withdrawal in terms of what am I going to do if I'm not going to answer 100 mails in a day? If I'm not going to solve somebody's problem, then am I doing my job? So it leads to a lot of insecurity. So what you need to do is essentially invest in retraining this HR business partner to be really able to understand the business and what value this person will add to the business. So therefore, one of the key focus areas for us in terms of building that capability for HR has been the business acumen. So we continuously invest in training HR folks, the HR business partners, on building the business acumen. And one of the key expectations from each of them is that they will become a coach and confidant for the business leader so that they can drive the transformational agenda for the business.
So let me add to what you're saying, and it's very valid. We've actually, for last few years, all of us have been living where, to do more with more, right? So all of us have been living with that. But I think we are moving into a period where we have to do more with less. And therefore, HR has a very big role to play in being enabling that, right? So I sort of agree that the operational efficiency and what you're talking about, shared services, is one of the steps that you move into it. So let me share an example, which is one of the shared services example in specific, is that we have what is called centers of excellence. And for example, from within India, we may be doing payroll for many parts of the world. So we have, hubs which does, and we operate in many countries. So you deliver out of that, and it's not easy. I totally agree with you. It's a pretty tough one. So this is, or for example, how do we take out transactions from the HR journalist and put it into a particular calling number where there are other people who have been trained on HR who can answer the people managers and employees on issues which, let's say, an HR journalist or partner should not spend time and can spend time on some other meaningful pieces. So you have that calling number which you do that. So these are pieces which are about, putting in and bringing about efficiencies. But what is very important is how do we measure, right? And that is where we spoke about the analytics piece. And that is how you link analytics then moving into predictive analytics. So you have dashboards as one example, but then what do you do with those dashboards over a period of time, and how do you, sort of analyze to have something which is very predictive? So let me share an experience with this. So we decided to do about 3 years ago, do some work on predictive analytics in the area of attrition. And there were too many variables, and all of you who are working in IT industry or industries which have more attrition than others had this big challenge. And based on those multiple fields that we looked at, we sort of came down to, let's say, that this is the set of population which is likely to attrite in next 6 months. Knowing that this is the population that is likely to attrite in next 6 months, what can I do? What intervention can I do? And we did that intervention. So we did a controlled group, because all we have to go back and show, as you said, return on investment to our finance teams and our finance crews. So we had a controlled group and we had an uncontrolled group. So we did an intervention with a controlled group, and we did not do with the similar features in an uncontrolled group, and we found that we had much lower attrition in the controlled group where an intervention was made. So that proved that there is a return on investment if we do certain intervention. And now for last 3 years, we run this program, and it is holding very good. It's become self-funding, where you look at the investments that you have to make because you're able to do that. So yes, I think efficiency, return on investment to be measured, being predictive are just one or two examples, and we can share more as we go along.
Sure.